Hello again, folks. It's your old buddy Pyat here with another very special episode of Pyat's Fortress. This time I'm on the road again. You might recall in the past we've been to Dallas Egbert's college, where he lived shortly before his disappearance that sparked the D&D panic of the late 70s and early 80s. We've been to furry conventions, we've been to the Eramosa Karst Caverns where I get stuck in a cave, all sorts of places. And of course I've taken you on many a conceptual journey before. But I'm on the road again, and we are on the road in the Pyat Mobile, which is a mighty beast of a car with one more cylinder than your average lawnmower and almost as many horsepower. So we're here in Battle Creek, Michigan, to visit once again the Slan Shack. I can't drive through Battle Creek without visiting the Slan Shack. The Slan Shack, as you might recall from my previous videos, my longtime viewers, will know that the Slan Shack was a sort of a commune, a deliberate commune for science fiction fans to live in. There was a number of fans lived there, including one person who was a fairly prominent author. And these were all devotees or disciples, maybe that's too strong a word, but you know, like extreme fans of E. Doc Smith, who wrote the Lensman series and kind of, you know, one of the guys who sort of started the space opera genre, and they were known as the Galactic Roamers, and they lived, you know, in mid-peninsula in Michigan. And yeah, just they weren't the first fans to live together in a shared household, but I think they were among the first to do so as a kind of deliberate attempt to create a science fiction fandom, whereas previously it had been friends living together for reasons of finance or common interest. A good example is the Futurians in New York City, which was a group that included Isaac Asimov and a number of other prominent names. The idea, you know, I'm going to start driving, so I'm going to stop looking at you. The idea of a planned community for someone like a commune or a shared household, that's not uncommon. It's certainly not unique to science fiction fandom. You see it amongst gamers. You'll see like guys who have that fantasy about, you know, hey, Eddie can be the dungeon master and we'll all live together in the same house and we'll just play D&D all the time when we're not working. You'll see it actually with other subcultures. Furries often have things called fur houses. They last, you know, as long as they might. Because often these things are sort of being created by people who are not known to each other. They only know each other as sort of like advertisements for versions of themselves, if you know what I'm saying. They've only met online, or in the case of fans back in the 1930s and 40s, they only met through the pages of the Amateur Press Association zines, where you would, you know, everybody would every month would contribute a letter or an article or a story, and they'd have these conversations back and forth. They'd have flame wars, they'd have, you know, suicide hoaxes, people would fall in love, people would fall out of love, and all the rest. Just like you get like internet forums and chat sites and social media these days. And inevitably there's the problems where, you know, nobody knows who's going to do the dishes, everybody argues about what's for supper, somebody's not paying the rent. But some of these deliberate communes, planned communes, do last a long time, and you just don't hear about them because they don't have the drama. I first learned about the Slan Shack by reading through an old zine called Le Zombie, which was published by Bob Tucker. That was a kind of an extraordinary publication that put out a number of issues way back from the days of First Fandom before World War II, all the way in an electronic format into the 21st century. But in one of these issues, there is a story about fans, early 1940s America, fans in Michigan, they going to Canada because Canada had entered the Second World War on the side of Britain, and Canada was at war, and they had this strange, you know, kind of visceral thrill. They really wanted to go see a bomber because that was sort of like the creme de la creme of technology. It was like seeing science fiction in action. So they loaded up in their little car and they went across and they you know, wrote a story about their adventures. It's like a road trip exactly like I'm on. And on my first trip to the Slan Shack, there's a little bit of I don't know, synchronicity there, because I was traveling to the States during the Second Gulf War, which of course my home country of Canada was not involved in. And so sort of like I, you know, am doing like the reverse pilgrimage many, many years later. All right, I'm just going to go right here, and crap, I just went illegally through a red. Not a red light. I turned right on a red that had a sign that said no turn on a right turn on a red. So hopefully you're not going to see Pyat's first encounter with the American police. Actually, I was stopped by U.S. police in Wisconsin while going to Gary Gygax's house. And I was driving with an American who had borrowed a car that belonged to another American from another state. And we didn't know where the insurance papers were. And this cop stopped us. And he's like, okay, these two, like, doughy white guys driving this, like, beat-up little car. And they don't have the papers for it. And the one guy's from Canada, one guy's from, like, California or something. And the car's from Kansas. So he was like, all right, this looks like paperwork. So he just told us to fix a crack in the windshield and let us go. Shall me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Don't ask me why. Oh, don't ask why. The Slan Shack got its name from a science fiction novel by the Canadian author A.E. von Voigt called Slan. It was about slans, who were sort of like particularly evolved humans with psychic powers and invisible antennae, who were hunted and persecuted by the mundanes, and it reflected a kind of insular attitude amongst fans. It struck a note with some of them. So the idea that fans are slans, that was actually an expression that was used back then, sometimes ironically, but it was the idea that, hey, we were the smart guys with the unusual interests, not like those, Chads and Beckys who just like, reading detective novels or romances or whatever and go to see Western movies. It's sort of like a fandom or subculture elitism that you see like everywhere. Barely contain my excitement. Doesn't matter how many times I come here, I get this little thrill of excitement as I realize that I'm standing in the shadow of, well, if not titans, then well, certainly people. Here we go. Looks like it has the same people who lived here last time I was here, or at least their car is the same. It's the Slan Shack. Let me get that for you. And there's the Slan Shack in all its glory. Wonderful, isn't it? So the people often ask me, Pyat, how come you keep going to the Slan Shack, but you never go to knock on the door or talk to them? Well, that is because, my friends, I prefer to let the mystery be. I know that whatever is inside the Slan Shack now cannot be as wonderful as I imagine it to be. And that's where I'll close from now. Please enjoy perhaps some clips of me driving, maybe singing, whatever it is, and I'll see you again next time, whatever that may be, on Pyat's Fortress.